All right, welcome back. Finally to the installing artwork phase. Now this first piece, which is actually the one you saw me take off, it's entitled There Will Be Peace. And you'll probably notice just how dusty it got. It's so dusty. I'm going to go ahead and brush it off first. So grab a clean paintbrush. Sorry, cross in front of your frame. And one of the last things I'll do before actually attaching the art, well, before wrapping the artwork up, is hit it with the air gun again. And because right now I'm clearly going to get some dust into the frame area. See how much brighter that looks when the sawdust is off of it? And obviously I'm using the paintbrush because it'll be gentle. And there's a fair amount of texture from these paint sticks. So like that's why I'm going back and forth like that to get it off of the, out of the ridges of the paint. You know, I probably should have looked for the thumbtacks before I started this. But so when I do the artwork, and you've seen the one painting that's not quite finished hanging on the wall, I push pin it to the wall. Boy, this dust really wants to hang on. Thought when I got to this edge here, I'd be able to just tap it and it would fall off, but no. To every art conservator who's watching this, there, I gave you a job. Hopefully somebody will want to save these things 100 years from now. So, and actually to that point, I talked earlier about the glue in the woods here, and so I did finally decide that it would be best to go ahead and polyurethane. And I'm using an acrylic urethane, so it has no acid in it. And so the work will be protected more. Now I can definitely see that I will, before I do the final steps, I will stand these up and brush them again and brush this out, this bottom edge. So now I'm just lining up the work. Now, somehow I can never cut a straight line when I'm cutting the paper. But the bottom and tops of this painting are the produced edges. So I kind of set them as my straight edge. And then this paper clearly isn't cut straight. So it's going to be quite close to the frame's edge there. And that's where I have to sort of make a decision, eyeball it. So this edge is pretty straight, and this distance and this distance are similar. And similar to the top and here. And it just gets really close right there. And I think that's the way it's going to look best. So now it's simply a question of thumbtacking the work down. And I just like this presentation. Oh, what I was saying, so the work, now yes, this work has also already been in a frame. You saw me take it out of one. But because it's push pinned to the wall, there's already holes in the paper, and so naturally that's where I will thumbtack the work as well. Oh, here we go. Here are my thumbtacks. Of course, now, because of all that sanding you watched earlier, everything is dusty. So, you know, nothing fancy about thumbtacking, right? So it's just, and I want to sink them all the way down. And should be, everywhere I'm putting these, I should be close enough that I'm going into the 1x that is underneath. So again, this painting, which you saw there, is entitled "There Will Be Peace." And when I title my artwork, to be fair, when Bridget titles my artwork, my wife Bridget Gethin's an accomplished actor, currently in a TV show entitled Sprung. It's on Amazon's channel Freebie. She's a great wordsmith. I'm a great picture maker, image maker. But she is so good at titling the artwork that is now her job. So, and one of the things we like to do with the titles is open up the interpretation. So, in this protest piece, this figure here is holding one of the rubber bullets. You have all the riot police in their full riot gear. You have the protesters. I love this guy right here, picked up one of the safety cones and is using it as a megaphone. And so the title, "There Will Be Peace," you, the viewer, are potentially the deciding factor on what that means. Does it mean the police will eventually get control of this unruly, awful mob? Or, as the chant, the protest chant, and I have a stained glass piece that kind of deals with this. There's a big spider over here. Go away, buddy. As the protest chant goes, "No justice, no peace." And the protesters, this was all after the killing of George Floyd, and the protests where they were about, we need equal justice under the law. You know, the image of Lady Justice blindfolded means that justice should be equal and have not looking at who the color of the skin, the religious background, whatever, of the protester. And a lot of these protests were just how different people of color are treated by the police than others, than white people are. There's another painting that will be in this exhibition entitled "I Didn't Know." And it's a personal experience that deals with just that disparity of treatment from the police. So that's the process now. This piece is ready for putting the hangers on the back and then wrapping it in plastic so it's ready to go up to Alexandria to Coyote Gallery. So what I'll do now is just sort of let you see the whole, do the time lapse of installing all of the other work. And I'll see you on the flip side of that. So I wanted to stop the time lapse because I wanted to talk about this painting while I finished untacking it. This one is called Who Cares? And it, so all of these paintings in this exhibition will most likely be entitled 2020. All of these paintings were done during 2020, during the lockdown, election period, you know, just everything that was 2020. And this painting is based on the protests, particularly I think this one was Colorado, but people showing up and just outraged that the lockdown was going on. Where's their freedoms? And ironically, somebody was carrying a sign that was "Give me liberty" or "Give me death." And of course, liberty to not wear that mask could quite easily result in your death. But what I was struck by was all this vitriol and anger and misguided understanding of truth. And some of the things in this, like, the guy carrying the rifle wrapped in the American flag, the other guy in the stars and bars of the Confederate battle flag, the red hat, most of us know what that's in symbol of, and the calmness and passivity and silent visual that the healthcare workers, who had already just, were working incredible hours trying to save the lives of the people who, in ignorant, had not protected themselves out of ignorance, and worse, protecting the very people that were screaming at them who would get COVID, oftentimes during these events, and saving their lives even though they were the ones out here screaming at us. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about this painting. I'm really fond of this one. There are some paintings that we create that are just more special. And this is one of those. I'm just very fond of this piece. I'm not fond of what it represents, although I am, continue to stand in awe of healthcare workers. There's another stained glass piece in the show called Agatha, which is a piece that turns a healthcare provider in full PPE into a religious icon. And there are others, actually the rubber bullet from the previous painting. There's another piece about that. That's an icon. So this is the process. I'm going to spare you the rest of the keep going with the videos, the time lapse. So of course now I got to pull these up and lay down the next three. So away we go. So I think I only have enough thumbtacks to get this piece done, and then it's off to the office supply store. Now this one is also still dusty. And I have no idea. Oh, there it is. But I'll do all of this when they're vertical, because then the sawdust has got somewhere to go. But just so you see, and you can see that that sawdust catches in the texture of the paint sticks. Now, if you dig back in my history, you'll be able to see some of these pieces being created. To be honest, right now I can't remember which ones I showed me working on and which ones I didn't. There you go. This painting is called The Road to Hell is Paved with Good and Bad Intentions. And this painting, so the day that Biden was finally announced the winner, and yes, there are still people that don't accept that. The guy who lost being the most vocal of them, which is bizarre considering how little he actually wanted the job. But anyway, I'll try not to stray too deeply down that rabbit hole. But so the day that Biden was declared the winner, I decided, well, I'm going to go for a bike ride. And I went by, but at that point was still where the Lee statue was, although it had become a focal point and actually been renamed for a young Richmond native who had been killed by the police during a psychotic event. I'm sorry, the name is escaping right. Peters is the last name. But, so I went by the circle and many people had gathered, and there was this joyous sense of relief, like, oh my God, we don't have to do 4 more years of what we just did. And I went, well, okay, that was really fun and comforting, and people would occasionally just break out in spontaneous applause, and there were people singing hymns. It was solemn and joyful. And then I went, well, I'm going to go ahead and go on out on a bike ride. And my favorite areas to ride are east of the city, out what is, I use part of what is the, locally known as the Cap to Cap, but the Virginia Capitol Trail, which is a 52-mile bike trail, paved, beautiful, wide roads, wide trail that goes from Richmond down to Williamsburg. But I had to ride past the state capitol on my way out to that. And I heard all this yelling and screaming and a guy on a megaphone. So I thought, well, let's go see what that is. And it was this guy in his red hat with all of his red-hatted believers talking. One of my favorite poems was like, he didn't even take a salary, was one of the things he was making. But it was a small Stop the Steal protest, you know, part of the big lie. And what I found intriguing was there were more police and press and counter-protesters than there were Stop the Steal protesters. The one that cracked me up the most is this person with their pink pussy hat on. Pussycat hat, remember those from Million Woman March? Wearing masks, protesters were, but carrying a plunger. And couldn't have been a weapon, so was it a visual reference to unclogging our political toilet, perhaps? I don't know. You know, I hadn't really given that much thought, that plunger. But as I'm looking at it now and talking to you about this piece, I also really like this piece. I don't like what it represents. And again, Bridget, my wife, oh, that thumbtack bent. Was concerned that it may look like I was in support of these guys. So her title, and maybe a way to help sort of solidify my point of view. And I've had a few paintings like that where you might be a little confused as to which side of the fence I'm on. And that's fine. All of my paintings are left to the viewer's interpretation. And the skill of her titles are that the title talks about what's going on, but it doesn't necessarily direct you into how to think about it. And what's interesting, this painting, you may notice the date is 1/1/21. And 5 days later, we know what happened. And as I went out on that ride, there were all sorts of stop the steal signs and Trump paraphernalia all east of the city, which tends to be a more conservative area. And after the 6th, and probably around the 10th, I went back on a bike ride, same route. Every one of those signs was gone. There were people that had painted the side of their house. They had painted it over. January 6th changed a lot of people's opinions. So, anyway, probably shouldn't talk about that because we're talking about art, but this art comes from that. Art doesn't happen in a vacuum. So, I've got to go get more thumbtacks, so I'm going to stop the videos here. This is the last, I'm not, I have to screw D-rings on the back for picture hanging. You don't need to see that. So probably the next video I'll post, maybe I'll do a loading up the truck one, but probably not. And if I don't, then it will be, I will somehow figure out how to do a exhibition walkthrough, but hopefully you'll get to go see all of those paintings at Cayo Gallery. I believe the opening is October 24th. Cayo Gallery is in Alexandria, Virginia. I think they have a website. If they do, I'll link that to this. And again, encourage you to subscribe so you'll see when those next videos pop up. After the gallery tour, before the gallery tour, we'll be back to seeing paintings in their creation in the studio. Please give it a thumbs up if you like what you see, and I really do appreciate you all watching. Share it with friends. Let people know. The more people know, the more people can see, and maybe at some point, other than selling the artwork, I can get a little bit of income from these as well. But that comes about with you all subscribing. So, thank you. I didn't mean to plea. I really appreciate you all taking the time to watch. Thank you.